Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks on Wednesday, the 15th day of November, year of our Lord 2017. Welcome to the John Moore Show. Proper tip of the day. Listen carefully. I want to encourage all of you that have devices that take batteries to store them with the batteries removed, number one. Number two, check all your batteries to make sure that they're in good condition. And last but not least, if you use rechargeable batteries, here's the ones you want. Nickel metal hydride, low self-discharge. Nickel metal hydride, low self-discharge. All rechargeable batteries, just sitting, will lose their charge over time. The low self-discharge ones are the ones you want. They hold their charge longer. And that's your prepper tip of the day. We have a patient waiting in the green room, my friend, Professor James McCanney. Professor McCanney is a credentialed astrophysicist. He has taught astrophysics at the university level. He's taught mathematics at the university level. He's an accomplished amateur archaeologist, having helped some of these countries figure out what's going on with some of these ancient monuments that they have. A distinguished author, having published 10 books, and radio talk show host. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, John. How are you today?
Really good. It must be very satisfying to go someplace like Peru and figure out what some of these monuments are that people have been looking at for 70 years or more, and help these countries and their governments figure out what these things are out there in the desert of Peru. Must be very satisfying, Jim.
Yeah, you know, John, I was had some time the other day, and I pulled up like waiting in a doctor's office type of thing. So I pulled up the Nazca paper, and I read it from beginning to end. It's not very long, describing what you're talking about there, the Nazca lines. And it's really interesting. I mean, it's fun to go back and read your own writing. You know, after a time, I've been busy. I haven't seen it for a while. But that is such a startling discovery just in general for mankind. To understand that, before the Egyptian pyramids were built, there was a race of people that understood advanced physics, antenna design, fractal antenna design, which we have only learned to use in the last 10 years.
I was going to say, before you go any further, Jim, if I talked to a radio frequency engineer 20 years ago and I brought up the topic of a fractal antenna, what would the response have been?
There wouldn't have been one. They'd say, what's that? You know,
exactly.
If you talk to any expert in radio antenna technology or engineering, that it wouldn't be a question. There was no such thing.
Exactly.
Yet the ancients were using them, drawing whimsical animal and plant figures in the desert that were huge, and then linking them together, and then building mounds that were atmospheric electric collection centers to drive them to communicate with other star systems.
Right. Amazing. It is truly amazing. And that the one fractal antenna design that we see, which appears to be how would you describe it? A ever larger circle. That design.
Right, the spirals.
The spiral design. Yes. Right. That design is found all over the planet in petroglyphs, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it certainly is. The thing that's unique about the Nazca lines and the Palpa lines, which were earlier, we a lot of times talk about the Nazca Plains, but north of there is a smaller but older area. It's called Palpa, and that's the region in Peru. But these are continuous lines, so they're actually in pairs. So the line comes in, traces a spiral, and then moves over just a little bit and traces the same spiral back out, and then continues on to connect in with very straight lines to connect into hubs which are connecting hubs for these antennas. And if you were, they also had the ability to take these antennas and hook them in one at a time or in pairs or in multiples. And so each one has its own shape, and each one has its own set of overtones. So it'd be like playing a note on a piano.
Right.
Anyway, it just is amazing that these people did this. And so I also figured out that they made the animal and bird figures, etc., so they were only visible from the sky. So look at what we had to learn and do to understand what these were. First of all, we had to be able to fly, and that was Paul Kosok in 1941. During World War II, he was a pilot, and so he flew over them for the first time, and he recognized the first figure as a figure in the sand. Up to then, from a vantage point on the ground or from the surrounding mountains, all you could see were lines. So they thought they were like little paths through the dry desert. And so they realized there's something to these. And so then Maria Reich came. She was a teacher, had been in Peru, in Lima. Her job was teaching she was a physicist. She was brought to teach science and math to little kids of the embassy people there. So she got an interest in this, went down there and spent the rest of her life there, categorizing and measuring and finally getting it protected as an area under UNESCO in 1994, which is the current status.
Right.
But, the first thing is we had to be able to fly. Number two, then it would take somebody to go out there and study this. Then finally, it would take somebody like myself who understood antenna design and physics and transmission protocols and everything else that goes with it to actually look at this and also to figure out that they were using atmospheric electricity. They actually built these little mountains out there. With now the lines are basically made by moving little rocks of iron-rich material into rows, and these might be up to 1 meter across, and then they dug out a little trough. Well, all of the material from that little trough went at the very end to make these mounds. And the reason they had the mounds was to collect atmospheric electricity and drive the antennas, because these cover an area of a couple hundred square kilometers. And so to drive that, you need a very powerful electrical source, and they didn't have nuclear reactors or the local coal burning plant.
So, what's the size of these mounds, Jim, if you know?
Well, yeah, I've been on them. They're about, maybe 100 feet tall. And they have a big, broad top on them. And when you look out from that vantage point, I have some pictures in the paper of a couple of them. When you look out from that vantage point, you see all the lines converging, coming in from a distance. They all converge and they come up to a point at the very top of these man-made mounds. And that's where the atmospheric electricity collectors would be that would drive these massive antenna systems that are all hooked together in an array with the ability to connect them in or connect certain ones in at a time. And so it would be like playing, with these various antennas. And additionally, there are hundreds of big dipole antennas. So there not only are there the figures, but there are many, many complexes of dipole antennas, and a dipole antenna is just a straight line. Some of them 8 kilometers long. And so when you connect them in patterns, you get different, when you have an antenna, like broadcasting,
right.
It has lobes, what are called lobes, and that's much more intense in certain directions, and you can hardly hear it in other directions. But so by combining these in different patterns and different frequencies, then you could basically communicate with different star systems.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, Jim, would be a type of Morse code where you could connect certain antennas to send the dots and dashes.
Right. Or as we call in the telecommunications, a protocol, communications protocol. And so basically that tells you, okay, you send this first. Now I know you're ready to send. I send an acknowledgement back, and that's a code. And then you start communicating, but you have to predetermine all of these protocol standards before you ever start. Otherwise,
Obviously.
it would be like I say in the paper, it'd be like two blind men talking with sign language. Yeah, it wouldn't. Well, it doesn't work.
It would be natural to assume if these antennas were set up to send messages, they also would be set up to receive messages, wouldn't they?
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. So some of them, there's one, interestingly enough, that looks exactly like the 1950s TV antenna that we have, and it's actually the biggest figure of all. It's like three football fields long, about 1,000 feet long.
Right.
And it's in the shape, it incorporates three different types of antennas. There's a fractal animal, then there's a shunt, which is an antenna component. It actually incorporates a shunt, and then a very long, about a 600-meter long dipole antenna, which connects into the rest of the grid out there. But when you look at these, and you see that there's very intelligent circuit design involved in these. For example, the monkey's arm. There's a monkey who has a spiral tail, and he's connected with about 4 different types of fractal antennas. But the lines wrap around and they cross the monkey's arms. Well, when they cross the monkey's arms, they stop. They don't short circuit the arms. So these are electronic circuit, like printed circuit board design criteria.
Amazing.
So, it's absolutely, when you stand back and see this, the next question is, where were they signaling to? Who was signaling to them? And what was the protocol? And
obviously.
And I've been working on that, and that does not have a solution yet, because that's something that, intelligent beings would have to sit down and decide upon. And we don't have that for that.
Caucasians have been here for 500 years, and it's only been 76 years that we figured out those things even existed. So it's going to take some time. Jim, we got a caller on hold here. We got Dan in Hawaii. Good morning, Dan.
Morning, John. Thank you. Morning, Professor.
Morning.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Dan.
I'm interested.
You're on the air.
I'm interested in timelines.
I guess Dan took a break, but he's
I
welcome back.
can hear him, John. I can hear him.
You can. Okay, I can't hear a thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
Professor, I'm interested in timelines. Do you have any what the current date?
I don't know what our listeners can hear. Is he asking a question?
Yeah, John. He's asking about timelines. He's asking if there's been determined a timeline for these, and I talked about this in my paper, the white paper, Nazca Lines Mystery Resolved. It's really funny. National Geographic, Scientific American went out there in the 1950s, and they sent some so-called experts out there, and they spent an afternoon in the sun moving rocks, and they determined that this could be done in a couple afternoons by primitive natives who had a little extra time on their hand. Walked away, and that was the official scientific analysis, and they just said that it was some pre-Inca primitive people.
Well, they meant well, Jim, but they didn't have a clue. They meant well, but they didn't have a clue, and they couldn't. The technology didn't even exist back then.
Yeah, well-meaning in science does not cut it, though.
Well, I understand. Yeah, of course.
But anyway, yeah. But But no, to be very honest, there is no timeline. And the other thing they've done is they've found like campfires of primitive people out there and maybe some dead people, like mummified because it's very dry. And they carbon dated that, and they said, oh, that gives us the date of the Nazca Lines. Well,
hardly.
Some guy building a campfire out there, 1,000 years ago or something, has nothing to do with who built the Nazca Lines. So there again, bad science, which is rampant. I mean, it's like all science that I see today coming out of standard science. It's at best highly questionable. And so, anyway, no. So literally, we don't have a timeline. And
right.
There's another question.
Well, you can't carbon date rocks, but
no.
And this is, we have deserts, but we don't know what a desert is until you've been to that desert there. It's one of the driest places on the planet, isn't it, Jim?
Yeah, exactly. It's bone dry out there, and it's a beautiful place for amateur astronomers to go because it's so clear. But it doesn't rain there, so the thousands of years, this hasn't changed. It hasn't eroded. Of course, there's wind and everything, but it has stayed this way for thousands and thousands of years. So we really don't have a clue who did this, or if they were human. If they were aliens, we don't know. I mean, we have no data with which to make decisions. So in my paper, I do 5 scenarios, 2 of which were done by people that lived there. And when you look at those, the probability of people in what we typically think of that era is just, building fractal antennas in the desert that are hundreds of miles long and complicated, hooked together atmospheric electricity and then signaling. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Hold that thought, Jim. We got a break. We have a break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman.com. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 15th of November, visiting with Professor James McCanney. His website's linked to my links page at thelibertyman.com. Jim, you have not one but 2 radio shows a week. Tell people how they can listen live and the archives, if you would, please, sir.
Yes, John. Every Thursday evening at 6 p.m. Central Time from WWCR Nashville, Tennessee, the James McCanney Science Hour at the Crossroads. That's my ongoing commercial-free show. Yeah, it's been there for 17 years and going. The It re-airs every Friday evening, 10 p.m., and Saturday morning, 3 a.m. from WTWW, and also Central Time. And then there's many other ways to listen on satellite on Saturday. So all that information on my webpage, jmccsci.com. And then my paid cast is $3.95 a month. And with that, you get 1 hour per week extra science topic. So those are pure science topics, unlike my show where I cover a lot of current events and also science topics. But so anyway, all of that on my webpage, which is linked from John's page.
All right. We got a caller on hold here. We got Rick in Missouri. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning, Professor. Good morning, John. Hey, I've got about 3 questions. I'll ask them all at once, and then you can answer them. One of the questions, I don't know much of anything about antennas, but I know these different lengths. I've seen the pictures of the Nazca lines, and I'm assuming that they're hooking and unhooking these things to get different frequencies. But one of the questions is, I know they didn't have Romex, so I wonder how they're doing that. They'd almost have to move rocks around. Or move some out of the way to disconnect, I think. And then if you've got SETI out there shooting these $1 million things up in the sky, and they can't figure out what these ancient people were doing, I just don't get that one. And the other thing is, and why don't we just hook these back up and see who answers? I mean, if you got somebody's cell phone.
That's a good thought.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Professor McCanney can make this thing work. And the other thing is, why are these mounds producing any electricity at all? I really don't get that either.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go in reverse order.
Go ahead. I'll help with the last one.
Yeah,
go ahead,
John. Go ahead, John.
Well, this is for everybody, and you can do a simple search on your search engine, and what you're looking for is Earth batteries. They first discovered this in the before the Civil War in 1840s. That if you have moist earth and you take 2 dissimilar metals, say 1 copper and 1 steel, or 1 aluminum and 1 steel, or just so they're dissimilar, and you place them on a north-south axis in moist dirt, moist soil, you will get electricity. And the farther apart they are, the more electricity you get. And they were running small electrical devices on earth batteries before the Civil War. This is not a secret, and it's been around for more than 150 years. So gathering electricity is something we've been doing for a long time in the modern age, and I think that's just another example. Now, they were gathering electricity from the air instead of from the ground, but Nikola Tesla certainly proved how to do that, didn't he, Jim?
Exactly. Yeah, this is Tesla technology that Tesla really rediscovered. A lot of what Tesla did was ancient technology, which led me to believe in my book, Atlantis to Tesla, The Colburn Connection. I believed that Tesla had information, and I speculated that he got it from the Library of the Vatican, which his father curated. And Tesla was a physicist, a very good one.
Exactly.
And so that was what I speculated, because he came up with and reconstructed all of these ancient technologies, including gathering atmospheric electricity. So that's that one.
We'll get to Rick's other questions when we get back from the break. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll
okay.
Be back.
Yeah.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 15th of November. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. A lot of my regular listeners already know what I'm about to say, but for the benefit of Professor McCanny, we now have 2 new movies since last week, movies that have North America with different coastlines, both from 1957. They're posted on my website on the left-hand side there. The first 1957 movie is titled The Night the Earth Exploded. The other 1957 movie is The 27th Day. The list keeps growing. If you find a film with a continent with new coastlines, an image of a continent with new coastlines, get that to me. As a thank you, you get your choice in my 5 DVDs, and it's a fun project. Also, at my website, of course, are energy cleaners. This is my home business. When you get an energy cleaner to help you with your arthritis pain, joint pain, or back pain, I'm the guy that boxes them up and takes them to the little country post office at Cherryville, Missouri. When you get a mattress pad, I'm the guy who packs them up and takes them to the same post office and ship them out, United States Postal Service priority mail. Only $285 for the energy cleaner, and it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. I use mine every night, and I wake up full of energy, ready to hit it the next day. You can also. What are you waiting for? I do take PayPal, MasterCard, Visa checks, and be sent to my address at thelibertyman.com. We're supposed to have Diane Zerger on tomorrow morning for a few minutes. She hasn't been with us for a couple of years to give us some updates for her. Toll-free order line for the energy cleaner and the mattress pads. Here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Visiting with Professor James McCanny. Taking your questions, calls, and comments at 800-313-9443. Jim, he had 2 other questions. One was how to connect and disconnect, which he mentioned moving rocks, and that would be, would that be the accurate, right way to do that?
Well, actually, we're assuming they used these. Now, see, one of the other scenarios is that somebody came here, built these, and left it for us to discover and then connect in. And if you use atmospheric electricity, these circuits basically are going to have a natural frequency. And so we are not sure that they actually used these.
Okay.
But because I've looked intensely for artifacts on the mounds and things like that, and I have not found anything. So the question, did they use these, or were they intended for us to find? Allegedly, these were built at different times because some actually cross over other ones. So it's a very complicated question. But if they did, what happened to all the stuff? Now, throw in the Spanish, who basically never kept any record of all the damage they did when they hit Peru, and they were big time in Peru, stealing everything. There's a temple that's in Lima that was surrounded like with a foot or 2 meter wide and a meter tall solid gold cap around the walled city. And this was a big, big area. It was like a ceremonial area. The Spanish took all of that gold and left just a little bit. That's how we know what was there. But if it weren't for that, there's no Spanish record of all of the damage they did. They took big temples of the Incas and cut them down and made churches. We estimate that about 20% of what was there before is actually left today.
Amazing.
And so they were busy, but we have no record of what they did. And so the first recorded noting of the Nazca lines was in 1533. So look at this. Columbus discovered this in 1492. By 1533, they had already been down to Nazca. So it wouldn't be unreasonable to think that the Spanish just went in and took everything.
And Rick's last question, he's suggesting that you put these things back in operation and communicate with whoever needs to be communicated with.
Yes, I am suggesting that.
Right. I talk about that in the paper also. But what I was suggesting is do a 3D printer. What do you call, like a 3D printer, and do a mock-up of these, and then just do some electronic signaling on a small scale. So we'd, and with that we could make some estimates based on that of lobe. When you connect certain antennas together, what kind of signaling lobe do you get? And there's a certain amount of antenna design that you could use computer simulation. But this is a big, big study. And it would take serious resources.
I just have one more comment, and then I'll listen off air. But if in fact, I'm wondering how long it would take to get an answer from somewhere. And Jim, what if you hooked the thing up and sent something out that the answer came back 200 years from now? You'd just think it wasn't working.
Well, the other thing is, I talk about that in the paper, that the most likely candidates are only like 6 or 8 light years away. And so we could get in a very short amount of time, and the amount of time it took the New Horizons spacecraft to get from Earth to Pluto, we could have already had an answer back. And
how many years is that?
The other issue.
How long is that?
What's that? 16.
How long is that?
6. 8 years one way, 8 years back. 16-year round trip.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. That was all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay.
It's really a fascinating show. Thank you.
Rick, thank you for the call. We appreciate it. Call number's 800-313-9443.
There's a lot of unanswered questions, but we can speculate a lot of things also based on various scenarios, and this is where some research money should be put, not in developing a new automated space weapons platform like I just saw on space.com. BAE has gotten a contract. They're out of Reston, Virginia. Millions of dollars being spent on fabricating a space environment simulator for the military. That's just what we need, is a war in space with somebody else.
That's right. Well, we would quickly find ourselves in over our heads if we tried to take on somebody who's been doing this for a few centuries.
Yeah, a few million years, maybe.
Yeah. Well, looking at, if they're only 20 years ahead of us, they would be undefeatable, the way technology works.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Jim, you have a lot of different projects you're working on. What direction you want to go next, sir?
Well, just remind people that the wing generator commercialization is underway, and so if people are interested in having an alternative energy source, if you have a farm or a ranch or a situation where you have free run of wind and a need for alternative energy source, just email me at jmcc@jmcannyscience.com, put in the subject heading wing, and then we'll send you a questionnaire and go from there to examine the sites and that type of thing. So.
All right. That sounds good. We got a next caller here. We got Dale in Kentucky. Good morning, Dale.
Morning, guys. Mr. Mechanic, when you was down there in Peru, did you go to that one mountaintop that was sheared off and leveled? What's the size of that thing?
Oh, you mean Machu Picchu?
No, near the Nazca lines.
That there was a mountain leveled?
Yeah, the whole top of the mountain was leveled.
They leveled the top up, I think is what he's trying to say there, Jim.
Right, I'm not familiar with that. So do you have a name of it or anything like that?
I can't remember, but I know it's near that area.
Well, there's a mound which is these are in the foothills or off of the foothills of the Andes. And when you look at the Andes range that comes through there, some of these are up in elevated plateaus. They're in the form of triangles, which is a very typical fractal antenna shape. And they are in elevated plateaus, valleys that are up in the mountains. And then there's another mound, which is right in the center of this whole complex of antennas. And there's a guy, they call him the astronaut or the owl man, because he kind of looks like an owl.
Right.
But he has his right hand pointed up. And,
yeah.
I mean, you can't miss it. It's right in the middle of the complex. And at the top of that mound is a series of structures, which would imply that that had something to do with the antenna complex. So in my speculations, one of the speculations is that this was used to call in alien craft, and that was the landing pad up there, where they would come in and land.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know there's one down there where the whole mountaintop was removed and leveled, and they trying to figure out if it was going to be an airport or what it was.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. If you had more information, I'd be interested.
Okay, I read it a long time ago. I can't remember what magazine, but I had pictures of it.
Oh, okay. Well, if you find more details, yeah, please get it to John or somebody.
Right. Yeah, get it to me and I'll get it to
Joe.
If you run across that again, Dale.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, appreciate it. Jim, do you know what topics you might be covering in this week's radio shows?
I've been out of radio range for most of this week, so I'm still looking into details. I do have a ongoing series of topics. I'm dealing with comets turning into planets. And it's, of course, one of my original theoretical structures in my whole entourage of rewriting astrophysics. But we have some real live candidates now. We have this big comet coming in, K2, which I've talked about before. And so I'm trying to get more information on that. But this is a topic which is very current, because we do have a new planetary candidate coming in. And this, I could just take a second here and explain how they measure the size of comet nuclei. And it's really bogus. What they do is they look at the reflection of solar light. And then they estimate that if the comet were pure white in snow, then how much pure snow white surface would it take to reflect that amount of light? The problem is the comet is pitch black. So it would take something thousands of times bigger to reflect that same amount of light, given that it's black. So they estimate that this thing is 12 miles across. Well, it's goofy, that it's a little ice ball 12 miles across. Well, no, this thing is probably bigger than Earth. Right now.
Really?
To reflect that amount of light being black. And so right off the top, we know that the nucleus of this thing is really big. It's supposedly coming in on an orbit that will not come any closer than the orbit of Mars. But these orbits change because of the tail drag. So that's a really complicated physics problem that I'm working on to try and figure out where this thing is actually going to come into the solar system and when and everything else. But it's going to shatter all the records of Hale-Bopp. We already know it'll be in the solar system for a period of about 12 years. Hale-Bopp was visible for 6 years. So this is going to be a major new discovery, and all of the information they're giving out about it is completely false. It doesn't make any sense at all. They say this is coming in for the very first time, and that doesn't make any sense because something that's coming in from very far away is only going to be in the solar system for maybe a matter of days, maybe a week or two. So they're lying right out of the chute on this thing. Everything they're putting out is a complete lie and fabrication. So this is an interesting story. But comets, so this object is actually becoming a planet in our solar system as we speak. And NASA's hiding it already the standard, the CIA controls NASA, but I'm trying to analyze this and also just talk about comets becoming planets. So that's the main science topic I'll be talking about.
Well, that's a big deal, and I encourage people to tune in and get the real information as opposed to the fabrications that are coming out of NASA. That's outstanding, Jim. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You frequently make comments on the state of the country. We had another mass shooting yesterday up in Northern California. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, Jim, but
I just heard that right. Much. I didn't hear any other details at all.
Well, 5 dead, 1 being the shooter, and I believe 10 wounded. The shooting took place in 7 different locations near a school, the school being one of the locations, an elementary school. And they've released the name of the shooter, and apparently there's some kind of domestic violence connection to all this. And I don't know a whole lot more than that myself, other than he apparently had a semi-automatic rifle and 2 pistols. It's a tragedy, and the one common denominator between almost all these tragedies is the shooter was consuming psychotropic drugs that was prescribed for them. Other than except for the Muslims don't need psychotropic drugs to commit mass murder, but normal people, it seems like, consume these antidepressants typically, SSRIs, and then they kill people. It's just a tragedy on top of a tragedy, isn't it, Jim?
Yeah, and John, you made that point that it's pretty much universal when you find these people like the Las Vegas guy, etc., that they're involved in basically legal drugs. But once again, how is this connected? What kind of guns were used, John? Do you know?
All I've read so far is a semi-automatic rifle and 2 pistols.
Okay. So, yeah, the analysis of putting all of these together is, instead of having them as isolated incidents, the timing is such that, we've got one every 2 weeks minimum now. And it's off in small communities. It's not in Los Angeles or New York City, right, where you expect certain things. It's in the middle of, and that's what terrorism is all about. So whoever is behind this, that's their motivation, is to make sure that middle America, the small town America, is, never safe. That's the whole point.
Well, what they're going to get is the opposite effect. I'm personally aware of a number of small churches in my area that either have or will soon have a private security force to keep people safe. So they're actually going to get the opposite of what they desire. There's going to be more security and more safety for these churches and other venues as a consequence of these attacks.
Well, and it's also private security, which is much better than the police department, which arrives after it's all over and fills out a report.
Right. Exactly.
You need somebody there at that moment. It reminds me of the real Paris attack. Remember the Paris shooting?
Absolutely.
The restaurant shooting?
All right. Jim, we have our last break. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. JR here on Wednesday, the 15th of November. Jim, let's continue where we left off for the break.
On the, let's see, we were talking about the shootings, etc.
Right. Well, they private security will be there at the moment that the event begins, and possibly even stop the event before it begins, where the police are responding. The best case scenario would be 3 to 5 minutes, and that's very optimistic. A lot of people can die in 3 to 5 minutes. So you have to have in-house private security to keep these venues safe, and there's no substitute, is there, Jim?
Right, and most places today have some element of security. So all you got to do is take those people, arm them with, I was, when the break came, I know what I was going to say. That shooting in Paris was foiled by 3 guys. There were restaurant shootings. And they never talked about the one. These 3 guys were from the Colombian drug cartel or something, and they were sitting there with guns on them, hidden. And so anyway, the shooting starts, so they threw a table over and offed all of the shooters, the terrorist guys. They never talked about that in Paris. That never, it came out in the very first news.
Drug cartel. Those guys they probably saved a lot of lives. There's no probably.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they foiled so then they had another one that they put the news media on. But that was supposed to be, a restaurant shooting with a lot of casualties, and nobody died there except the shooters.
And then another incident in Paris, the Charlie Hebdo publication company, they had unarmed police providing protection, and they died.
Yeah, well, that's the.
Right. What more do you need to know?
That's what you get in a no arm zone. Right. So anyway,
right. But unarmed police. That's a oxymoron. But they do that in a number of countries. England is another one where the police are mostly unarmed, although they're getting more and more armed police in England also. Well, Jim, we got about a minute left. Any final words for our audience?
Just private security. That's a great topic, and people should take care of themselves because, in public, I saw a picture. It was kind of cute. These 3 women, and they're at a Texas fair of some kind, and they each have a handgun stuck in their back pocket, and they're walking away. And the caption is, "This is Texas women's answer to Muslim terrorists."
All right, I like that. I like that. That's great. Jim, thank you very much. Look forward to having you back next Wednesday, sir.
Thanks, John. We'll see you.
Okay. All right. We're going to top of the hour break coming up. We'll have open lines here at Republic Broadcasting. Republic Broadcasting could use financial help. Just keep that in mind, and it would be help to have a regular monthly donation so they know what they can count on. Whatever fits your budget. $20 a month would be very helpful. Top of the hour break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here, our second hour on Wednesday, the 15th of November. Prepper tip of the day. And we can expand on this a little bit. All your devices that take batteries, especially AA, AAAs, C's and D's, you need to store them with the batteries removed. If you use rechargeable batteries, you want the nickel metal hydride batteries. They're the best. They don't take a memory like the other type of rechargeable batteries. And you want the low self-discharge versions of the nickel metal hydride. So be sure you store your devices with the batteries removed, that you have the nickel metal hydride rechargeable batteries, if that's what you choose to keep and use, that your chargers are in good condition, the batteries are in good condition. Battery damage can basically make a electronic device unusable. It can really wreck it and make a big mess, which is why we recommend changing the batteries on the energy cleaner once a year to help cut down the chance that there'll be damage from leaking batteries. It's really is a mess and no fun to deal with. Okay, we're going to have open lines this hour. The call number is 313-9443. And take your questions, calls, and comments. At my website, you'll find a lot of things. And we do have holiday gift-giving season coming up. That's where you might want to check out John's Survival and Tactical Gear. We've got a couple of hundred things listed there. I'm not sure what the count is, what the product count is. Most of them are things that come from Amazon. As I sometimes say, if John Moore is going to have a yard sale, many of these things are the things that you would see in my yard sale, things that I would either do own or would like to own. So it's going to be a mixed bag there. But you may find things that interest you for yourself, for somebody you need to get a gift for, a lot of different areas. And I'll just click on there right now and see where we go. Tim Spencer, of course, maintains this for me. And we begin with flags. These are flags that I inventory and sell myself. The Confederate battle flags, and go down to the Ghost Suit product. Now, these are suits specially designed to defeat thermal imaging equipment, and it's very specialized equipment that you may or may not have a need for, but if you need it really bad. Then the book titled 6 Ways In, 12 Ways Out. This is another product that I inventory and sell here from my home. In my collection of books, I've probably got I'd say 10 or 12 or more outdoor survival books, both private sector and military. This is the best I've seen, is the 6 Ways In, 12 Ways Out. Then we go to the electronic shielding bags, the Faraday bags. These are a standard industrial product meant to protect electronics from interference and being damaged. I don't have any copies of FM 31-20 in stock. Then we go to the Amazon listings. The Faraday shielding fabric comes up first. Special tape to connect it together. Books on kudzu. There's 3 books there. Have to do with growing it and preparing it for eating. And then there's some seeds, kudzu seeds. Be cautious if you if you get some of these. If that kudzu gets off your property onto your neighbors, your neighbor will be very, very angry. I can guarantee that. It would be highly unusual for your neighbor not to want kudzu on their property. Then we get into some air pistols and pellet pistols. Great training devices. Inexpensive to shoot. The skills are basically the same for sight picture, breath control, trigger control, for a pellet pistol or pellet rifle, as they are for a firearm. And there's the Benjamin Armada. That's a great pre-charged pneumatic there, and then a high pressure hand pump to charge it up. Benjamin Marauder, another excellent one. Of course, an air rifle, a pellet rifle, especially 22, but you could get by with a 177 caliber, are very useful for small game hunting and predator control. Sometimes one is the same as the other. So the rabbit is eating up your lettuce in the garden. You shoot the rabbit with your 22 caliber pellet rifle, and you save the lettuce and get some tasty meat. That's a win-win situation. I remember telling my daughter how when I was a boy, we would hunt squirrels here in the Ozarks with my grandfather. He taught me how to hunt. And we would hunt squirrels and bring them home and clean them and cook them and eat them. And she thought I was making a joke. She grew up in Metro Seattle, and she didn't know that human beings would do such a thing as hunt squirrels, clean them, cook them, and eat them. She didn't know human beings ever did such a thing. And it took me a bit to convince her that, yes, we do, in fact, hunt and cook and eat squirrels in the Ozarks. Cast iron cookware. Well, there's a lot of benefits to cast iron cookware, but one of them is not talked about all that much, and that's the health benefit of the food you prepare taking on some of the iron. And so there's a health benefit to cooking with cast iron that you don't get with other cookware. Properly cared for, it will last for generations, and we've got a real nice selection of cast iron cookware there, including some cast iron Dutch ovens and griddles and so forth, pie pan, chicken fryer, bread pan, a nice selection of large cast iron cookware, good quality. What could be more mundane than talking about toilet paper? Well, if you want a lot of toilet paper for the least amount of money, how about 12 rolls with 2,000 feet on each roll? Yeah, baby. That'll last you a while. We'll move down the line here. Heirloom vegetable seeds, nice selection. Special electrical tape. And here's something I really like. Digital hearing amplifier. Now, they can't call it a hearing aid. If they called it a hearing aid, then the FDA would be involved. So they call it a digital hearing amplifier. You may say, well, John, I got great hearing. I don't need a hearing aid. Well, there's more to this than that. It didn't occur to me to think of it in the way that I think of it now, but my mother-in-law lives in Metro St. Louis, and during the Ferguson riots, there were rioters arrested within less than a mile of her home in two different locations, one a shopping mall and the other some kind of convenience store. So knowing that was happening, I went up to her home to provide security, keeping in mind that insurance does not pay for any damage done during civil disorder. That doesn't happen. And I brought with me my digital hearing amplifier to give me a tactical advantage, so that when the criminal rioters were coming down the street, I could actually hear what they were saying, as opposed to guessing what they were saying. Now, these hearing amplifiers have noise canceling technology, so they amplify normal sounds, such as people talking, and the birds and the bugs and all that, normal sounds. But when there's a really loud sound, like a gunshot, it shuts down and prevents that from going into your ears. So it's really quite an advantage. To have the hearing of a dog, I don't know if it's that good, but dramatically enhanced hearing. It's kind of fun to wear these things because you can hear things you would never, ever hear before. Now, a friend of mine, he has suffered some hearing loss because of his occupation as a metal worker. And he was taking a walk through the woods with his wife, wearing one of these devices. And after he walks a couple hundred feet, it's summertime and there's birds and bugs and all this. He stops and he looks at his wife and he says to her the following, ask her a question. Is this what you hear all the time? And she says, well, yes. The birds and the bugs and so forth. And let's look at that a little bit. Okay, that one is off the list. I have to go to the next one. I need to update some of this stuff. Looks like some of this stuff has been discontinued. But I can get it back up. They're very inexpensive. Typically around $20 or so. Less than $30 for the hearing amplifiers. And I'll talk to Tim about getting these things updated. Moving down the line, we got some inflatable boats, high quality inflatable boats that you can use for recreation or for a crisis, an emergency of some sort. That would be good to have those. When they're not inflated, they can be stored in a very compact area. There's a collapsible folding canoe and a Panasonic Toughbook. That's a real high quality laptop computer made by Intel. Intel Core is what they got in there. Okay, a couple of things for the doggies. A little doggy backpack, collapsible water bowl for the doggy. Toothache kits. My goodness. Nothing will ruin your whole day like having a toothache. It just takes over your life. And these are meant to get you through a weekend or a couple of days when you can't get to a dentist very quickly to help mitigate the pain of a toothache. Several different, a number of things regarding toothaches and toothache kits there. And then some books on survival dentistry and survival medicine, where there is no doctor, where there is no dentist, 2 different titles. You might want to get those in your collection. Battle dressings, cut-resistant gloves, razor ribbon. This is the type of barbed wire they use around prisons. Emergency food bars, some all-terrain bicycles. These are electric bicycles and gasoline-powered bicycles. These hills around here, you're not going to ride unless you're a really excellent condition athlete. Where I am down here in Davisville, Missouri, and in these Ozark Hills, you're not going to be riding no normal bicycle. Having an electric bicycle would be great for several reasons. First of all, they're silent. Second of all, you can go up and down these hills where otherwise you'd be walking. Gasoline powered, they are noisy, but they accomplish the same goal and have a longer range, and they go a little bit faster. Then there's kits to convert bicycles to be gasoline powered. Quite a few bicycle related things. Then some electric scooters, electric powered mountain bike folding, electric powered mountain bike. That's pretty neat. And then some inserts that won't let you have a flat. That would ruin your whole day, wouldn't it? You're 8 or 10 miles from home and your bicycle has a flat tire. Well, these inserts, they can't get flats. That's pretty neat, isn't it? And we got a caller on hold here. We got Dan from Missouri. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, John. Since you're going down a list of quality items and interesting stuff, would you mind if I put in a plug for something pretty good that isn't on your website yet, but I hope it will be soon?
Well, let's hear about that. What is it?
Well, I went to a gun show in Kansas City about a month ago, and there was a lady sitting there at a booth from Missouri. I don't remember her name or her town, but she's from Missouri, and she's invented a board game. And she calls it the Good Game, and good stands for Get Out of Dodge.
Right.
It's right down our alley.
It is.
And I'm not a big fan of board games, but rather than sitting in front of the boob tube on a cold winter's night, if you got friends, this is kind of a mind bender. It'll make you think. And it was a quality piece. I looked it over really good, and I hope to have one in the near future. But they'd make a great Christmas present, or just have one so when friends come over, you could.
Don't just tease us. What's the name of it and how can people get it, Dan?
Okay. Her website is www.killswitchbunkergames. Just like it sounds, all one big word run together. killswitchbunkergames.com. And it's a great game. It seems like it's $29-$39. It's pretty much the going rate for a good-sized board game. And it's all about prepping and surviving, and it tries to make it fun. There's a number of accolades here. I got a flyer from her, and the people that have tried it are real happy with it. They say it's a real good way to spend a cold winter's night.
Right. Well, I would advise people, just in general, to stock up on board games. There's going to be discretionary time, even during the worst part of a crisis, where people will need something to occupy their time and have some downtime and something to enjoy themselves with. So, board games in general are good, and this one sounds like a dandy one.
It's right down our line, and I gave her a few pretty good ideas for the second version. It'll come out. Hopefully, she'll run with that. Like if you land on this square, you get to spend the night in her shelter dome, rather than pitching a tent that'll blow away. You know.
Absolutely,
so
I like that.
I gave her some ideas, and she says, "I never thought of that." And I said, "Well, you're not as old as I am yet, but she was a great gal, had a good attitude."
Dan, thank you for the call. We got a break.
Hey, thank you.
Gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman.com. Wednesday, the 15th day of November. We're taking questions, calls, and comments here at Republic Broadcasting, and the call number is 800-313-9443, 800-313-9443. Okay, I have a section at my website. It's on the right side there. Field training exercise, USS Liberty, December 31st, 2018. That's there for a reason. The reason being, people have been asking me for years, John, when's it going to happen? That's the question I've been getting for years. John, when's it going to happen? Now, it could be, what's it? Well, it could be the arrival of Planet X, economic collapse, World War III. The reason I have that section there at my website is to give people something to focus on. That's why it's there, to give people something to focus on. And hopefully it will do that, accomplish that goal, give people something to focus on so they can get more serious about their preparations and get something done that will be helpful. That would be a good thing, wouldn't it? Yeah, I think it would be a good thing. So go to that section and check it out. Pick the scenarios that you're concerned about. It may be more than one. It could be all 5. And then begin your own personal quest for getting ready. The single most important thing you can do is your spiritual preparations. I do private consultations. In fact, if you want a private consultation, there's details at my website on how we can do that. And the people I work with in these private consultations, they run the gamut from people who are barely scraping by economically to people who have serious financial wherewithal. One guy I worked with, he could literally buy semi-tractor trailer loads of whatever he wanted. Food, medical supplies, so forth, tools, building equipment. But he did not have peace in his heart. He did not have spiritual peace in his heart. Point being, no matter how much he bought, what he owned, he was not satisfied in his heart, had no peace in his heart. So that's number one. Number two is to do something every day. Seriously. Do something every day. It may not be a big deal. Maybe something rather small and insignificant. But do something every day. It's very important to do that. And I hope you can do something every day to get ready, to get prepared, and so forth. Maybe something small one day, maybe something bigger the next. Do something every day. And I mentioned in my little section there on U.S. Field Training Exercise USS Liberty, December 31st, 2018. Getting a spiral notebook and set up the spiral notebook in a very simple fashion with a page for each thing that you want to accomplish, and make your notes about that section, what it's going to take to accomplish that section, and go from there. Go from there. And it's very satisfying, at least I found it for myself, to incrementally, day by day, week by week, month by month, incrementally check off my to-do list. I find that very satisfying. That's what I did in the lead up to Y2K. Y2K turned out to be mostly a non-event because they bought 10 beers worth of computers in 2 years and fixed a man-made problem with a man-made solution. We have a break coming up. Call number is 800-313-9443.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We're continuing our energy cleaner promotion, which began August of 2016. In this promotion, you get to buy an energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and a mattress pad, 10% off retail. $200 of the purchase price of the energy cleaner goes to Republic Broadcasting. This is a great way to help get energy cleaners out to people who need them and have some financial issues to deal with. And, of course, a great way to support Republic Broadcasting. Here's what you do. Send in a postcard. My address is John Moore, P.O. Box 201, Davidsville, Missouri. We pick a postcard every 2 weeks. If your postcard is drawn, you get the chance to buy the energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and 10% off the mattress pads. Put your name and your address, your telephone number, and your email address on the postcard, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you. All right. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 15th of November. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. There's a free download at my website, a book titled The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. It's a great book. There's probably a dozen or more books of a similar genre that give similar advice. There's very few, however, that do what this book does. It gives you specific, detailed instructions on how to achieve any goal that you want to goal. It could be that you want to achieve. It could be a health-related goal, business, finance-related, personal relationship-related, whatever it might be. This book, and it's written from a Christian perspective, by the way, and he makes a good argument that Jesus was really attempting to give us this instruction in his teachings. And you can read it for yourself and reach your own conclusions. But it's a free download at my website under free downloads. And you might want to check that out. The copyright's long expired. The book was published just more than half a century ago. Also, my website, of course, are energy cleaners. This is my home business. I work with Tom Berryhill, the local manufacturer of the energy cleaner. And it's been a lot of fun working with Tom these years to help people get their lives back. And we've had several go very public, like my friend Tim Spencer, Steve Whitman. We're going to have Diane Zerger on for a few minutes tomorrow. Diane has bought more than a dozen energy cleaners, and she's always fun to talk to. A healing device. If you've got arthritis pain, it will probably help. Joint pain, it will help there. Back pain, same thing. Not getting a great night's sleep, yep, probably help there also. I use mine every night. I'm pretty active around the ranch here. Up and down ladders, off and on the Kubota tractor, down on my knees doing work. A lot of activity. Go to bed with minor aches and pains. Wake up pain-free the next morning. And you can also. Hey, go for it, Why not? I offer a 30-day money-back guarantee on the energy cleaner. The mattress pads, the price varies depending on the size. You can get all the details right there at my website at thelibertyman.com. You can also place your order there using PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, or you can call my toll-free order line 24 hours a day. Here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Taking questions, calls, and comments here at Republic Broadcasting. The call number is 800-313-9443. Field training exercise, USS Liberty, December 31st, 2018. 13 months from now. You pick your own scenario. Let's look at the scenarios here. Here's 5 of them listed. You could probably come up with 1 or 2 more. Number 1, economic collapse leading to civil disorder. Well, that's inevitable. What's going on with the economy and the national debt cannot continue. I can't say how long they can keep this scheme going, but it will not have a good ending. Number 2, World War III. Well, we're looking at the Middle East as number 1 scenario. Saudi Arabia and Iran look like they're going to get into it. It's kind of funny we have so many listeners that think that Israel is the issue in the Middle East, and if Israel was gone, there'd be no problems. Well, that's hardly the case, because Muslims are just tickled pink to kill each other. They think that's dandy. And of course, we have the situation with North Korea. Then we go to number 3. Rapid onset violent earth changes. I got a note from my kid brother telling me how the high tide in Miami sometimes is covering up the streets there. Well, that's not rapid onset. Rapid onset will be a violent matter taking place over a span of about 4 weeks where these oceans come out of their basins. Number 4, widespread terrorist attacks. Well, we're already seeing terrorist attacks, both domestic and ISIS-inspired. That's why churches all over the country are looking at getting their private security forces in place, and they need to do that. And last but not least, natural or man-made EMP. Coronal mass ejection, powerful enough, will just ruin your whole day. Could take out all the power grids all over the planet, because a coronal mass ejection can do something EMP can't, man-made EMP. Man-made EMP can only go line of sight, can't go around the curvature of the Earth. On one hand. On the other, a very strong coronal mass ejection, such as what happened in 1859, the Carrington event, that could actually go all the way around the curvature of the Earth and destroy power grids and electronic devices all over the planet. I've studied on this a lot. I've had Dr. Peter Pry here as my guest on this show. Dr. Peter Pry, who is the person who was in charge of the Congress cut the funding 2 months ago, by the way. He was in charge of the committee put in charge of studying what EMP can and what it cannot do. So, it may be the perfect weapon because it knocks out the ability of a country to defend itself and feed itself, but not doing permanent damage to the infrastructure that they really want. Now, what do the communists want from this country? They want the natural resources. They want the ability to grow and harvest and transport the grains that we do here. There's no better place on the planet to grow grains than the heartland of the United States. Corn, soybeans, wheat, rice, barley, oats, and so forth. There's nothing can even come close to the grain growing capacity of the heartland of the United States. That won't be destroyed by EMP on one hand. On the other, within 12 months of EMP happening, 9 out of 10 Americans will be dead for the following reasons. Lack of clean drinking water, lack of food, lack of medical care, and of course, criminal activity. All those things would combine to kill 9 out of 10 Americans within a year. It's not a pretty picture. It's pretty bleak, actually. But that's the way it is. We've been getting these warnings for quite a few years. We have the YouTube version of America, the TV miniseries, at my website, along with the prologue that was written by the guy who wrote the book that the miniseries was based on. It's about 3 pages. Tim Spencer has it there at my website. Because the miniseries doesn't tell you how Russia defeats and takes over the United States. It does not. But the book does, and it was an EMP attack. And then we got the miniseries Jericho, where the United States suffers several nuclear attacks. I believe it was a dozen or 15 cities knocked out with nuclear devices, and the fictional town of Jericho, Kansas, suffers the effects of EMP. There has been other warnings along the way. Now, that miniseries goes back to the mid-1980s, about 30 years ago. That one's been around a long time. The most recent version of Red Dawn was all ready to be released with the Chinese being the aggressors and using EMP to knock out our power grid. The Chinese had enough economic pull to force the change it to North Koreans being the bad guys using EMP. But that's another scenario there. Going back to the 1890s, without the infrastructure of the 1890s is what we're looking at with EMP. In the 1890s, we had external combustion engines and the beginnings of internal combustion engines, external combustion being steam engines, internal being diesel and gasoline. We had goods being manufactured and delivered and consumed all over the United States, healthcare system, police and fire protection, military, Navy, and so forth, postal service, none of which use electricity. They used horsepower, steam power, wind power, people power, and so forth to accomplish all these things. Nationwide train system. That's all gone. All that infrastructure is gone. The steam locomotives, the ones that are left, are used for tourist attractions and they're in the museums. The few that are left, not nearly enough to take care of the needs of the country. Sailboats are mostly for pleasure. Steamboats, well, once again, they're oddities in museums or for tourist attractions. A lot of horses. Missouri is the biggest horse state in the country, in case you don't know it. More horses in Missouri than in any other state. Most of them are pets. But the horse population could increase relatively quickly if we needed to. Not that many wagons these days, especially cargo wagons, for transportation of heavy items, heavy bulky items. No, it would be an absolute disaster to have a nationwide power grid down situation. There's 3 power grids in the lower 48. East Mississippi, West Mississippi, and Texas. And they do buy and sell electricity back and forth between the 3, by the way. This power grid is very fragile and has not been protected. The legislation to spend the money was defeated by one vote by one senator from Alaska, which has its own independent power grid, by the way. Dr. Pry started advocating 2 years ago or more that each state island itself from the other 47 lower states. Hawaii and Alaska don't count because they've got their own independent power grid to begin with. And I like that plan. It has some chance of some success. So we got 48 lower states. One's already isolated, Texas. I believe there's a couple, 1 or 2 back east, the smaller states that have islanded themselves. That's something that's doable at the state level with state funding or private funding. The private funding could be financed with tax incentives, tax write-offs, so it didn't cost the utility companies anything. That's what needs to happen. I'm not terribly optimistic that it will happen, but that is what needs to happen. And if you have any access to or are part of any kind of lobbying group in your state, I would encourage you to lobby your state legislature to island your state from the other 47 states here in the lower 48. It could save a lot of lives. The national effort can and should continue, but I'm not terribly optimistic about success at the national level to protect the national power grid. I'm really not. The cost would be equivalent of 1 1/3 B-1 bombers. There's about 100 of these things. They keep them at Whiteman Air Force Base, all polished up and looking good for inspection when the citizens and the congressmen come by to look at them. They use about 10 of them to blow up things in the Middle East. The rest of them they keep nice and polished and ready to go. Now, I'm not saying we don't need B-1 bombers, but we do need to spend the equivalent of 1 1/3 B-1 bombers, the equivalent dollar amount, to protect the national power grid. Split up between the 47 states, not counting Texas, being said, a lot more doable. Using tax incentives, tax write-offs to compensate the utilities for doing it also makes sense. The short-term loss of revenue, I believe, is certainly worth the security and the knowledge that your state's power grid will be independent and have more chance of surviving a grid-down situation. What's vulnerable in our power grid is it's less than 24 massive transformers that are manufactured in China, possibly India, but I've always heard China. In normal times, such as today, if you were to decide to order one of these massive multi-million-dollar transformers from China on November 15th, 2017, you may expect delivery November 15th, 2018. That's with everything working normal. Computers, telephone system, power grid, transportation, everything working normal, a 1-year turnaround time to get one of these things built. They're all custom built, by the way. And since they're so expensive and so dependable, they don't have backups. They don't need them because they are so well designed, well engineered, and durable they don't need backups. At least in their opinion, they don't. So they don't. If you're not aware of what EMP can and what it cannot do, just go to my website, scroll down the right side there. Let's see if I can find this thing. And here it is on the right side. It says EMP Commission Executive Report 2008. Large transformers in the U.S. electric grid, and also impacts of space weather on the electronic grid. There's a lot to read there. It's about 300 pages or so. The first third of it is, if you got limited time, is what you really need to read. Keeping in mind, the commission was not given enough money to run a full-strength pulse against the cars and trucks that they were testing, so they ran reduced-strength pulses against these cars and trucks. And they found they had limited damage, and the cars and trucks would still run with a limited pulse. On one hand. On the other, we don't know what will happen if a full-strength pulse is run against these cars and trucks. We simply don't. They weren't given the money. They were told to run reduced pulses so the automobiles and trucks could be repaired and resold on the market to save the government money. I know when I first read the report, I was very happy to read that some things in my Lincoln Town car may not work, but the car itself still would. Well, after talking to Dr. Peter Pry, I found that that's not necessarily the case. Here's our break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 15th of November. I can't say if anything will happen or when. I know some things are inevitable, the main one being economic collapse. That is inevitable. We have a couple of thousand years of recorded history and what happens when countries spin themselves into oblivion. That's no secret what the consequences of that is. It's also inevitable that a coronal mass ejection at some point will hit our planet. In 2012, we just missed being hit by one. Came very close. Missed us, obviously. War seems to be the plague of mankind. We've gone since World War II without a major conflict involving the world powers. Lots of proxy wars in between, of course. We all know what they were, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and other brush fire wars that you don't hear about. To a certain extent, we're having a proxy war in the Middle East already, with Russia supporting Syria and the United States being against Syria and our proxies. But the Russians typically do it the smart way. They just send equipment and money and so forth, while we send our young men to be lost in battle. Well, the Russians aren't shipping their young men home in coffins, and we are. That's pretty smart, isn't it? So I want to urge people to educate themselves about electromagnetic pulse and consider what it would take to survive, to have a safe haven, which I suggest a hobby farm is the best place to survive this kind of event. A hobby farm being a place where what's grown on the premises is meant to be consumed on the premises. Obviously, you sell extra items if you got them, eggs or apples or whatever they might be. chickens. But the primary purpose of a hobby farm is to feed the people that live there. You want to be a good distance from a major population center. 100 miles would be a good rule of thumb. And you want to have enough people to pull security. 2 adults or 3 or 4 adults trying to pull all-night security every night will be burdensome, to say the least. I would say 10 or 12 adults at least to spread out the security burden as to stand night watch. There's lots more to that. And my friend Tim Spencer, his website, ruralsurvival.info, can give you a lot of help there. A lot of excellent articles on hobby farms and farming in general, but mostly focused on hobby farms. Well, tomorrow we'll have Tim Spencer with us, hopefully, and it'll be a good show. Meantime, get your medical supplies, your energy cleaner, and essential oils now while you can, your firearms and ammunition. Never, ever give up your guns. Please do have a fun, safe, productive day, and God bless America.